For the first time in nearly a decade, Volvo has given their flagship model, the XC90, some significant updates. Now, this is not a complete redesign. For all intents and purposes underneath, this is pretty much the same car that came out back in 2015 for the 2016 model year. Pretty much still just a second generation XC90, but that's an okay thing because the XC90 second gen was an incredible vehicle that was selling very well throughout its entire lifetime. And this new 25.5 XC90 is really just a facelift that improves upon that vehicle. So let's take a look at this new 2025.5 XC90 shown here in the T8, which means plug-in hybrid, ultra trim level, to see what this new vehicle is all about. So then what is new? Well, most of the visual changes do come up front, where we have a new grille featuring diagonal intersecting lines, which I really like. Yes, it's similar to what BMW has done on the new X3, but I still think it's super sleek and super elegant and elevates the visual appeal of the XC90. So I'm a big fan of that. I'm also a big fan of these very crisp LED Thor's Hammer daytime running lights, which are new for this XC90. They really just accentuate the design language of that motif, that Thor's Hammer LED motif that they have been doing for a few years now, and I really like this rendition of it. Again, really just helps give this vehicle a signature front end look with this new front grille and these new DRLs. I think this is a really sharp and handsome looking vehicle. And then when we come along to the side, we can really tell, oh yes, this is just a facelift, not a complete redesign, which is okay. This is a handsome shape, but it is the same shape that we've been seeing for the past 10 years. Volvo really hasn't changed much with the side profile of this vehicle. There are new wheels on offer. These are the 21s that come standard on the higher end trim levels, and I quite like them. They're a bit different than what Volvo has given us on previous XC90s. There are larger wheels on offer too. There are a couple of 22-inch options, but I prefer these because they're new and different. Not offensive, nothing extraordinary, but fitting of this car. And coming around to the back, it's more similar to the side profile than the front. If I saw one of these on the road, I really couldn't tell if this was a 25.5 or say a 2024. Again, that's okay, very handsome, very sleek. And it is important to note that Volvo did come out with an all-new 3-row SUV for the 2025 model year, the all-electric EX90, which will be sold alongside this XC90. And part of the reason I think Volvo didn't give us an all-new XC90 for 2025 is they do plan to slowly become an all-electric brand. They do see the automotive industry going in an all-electric future. Initially, they said by 2030, they would only be selling EVs. They've kind of updated that to say that 90 to 100% of their sales would be EV by 2030, which means that vehicles like this XC90, they're not going to be around for all that much longer, maybe only 5 more model years. So it doesn't really make sense to completely redesign the vehicle and invest so much in a new platform if it is going to be phased out in the near future. So this is definitely enough of an update and still a very handsome vehicle that Volvo knocked out of the park 10 years ago. To keep on trucking along in the mid-2020s. Here in the second row of Volvo XC90, this Ultra model does have a 6-seat configuration. So these are captain's chairs back here with pretty wide armrests on the inboard side, which I quite like. Me at 6'2", sitting behind my ideal driving position, plenty of knee room and foot room, and sitting upright, even with a panoramic sunroof, I do have enough headroom. This is a 3-row midsize, so it's not going to be the largest space back here, but again, full-size adults are going to be very comfortable. And we do have some nice luxury features like manual peasant blockers, really nice materials too. I love the black leather, the tan leather, the open pore wood trim. These Bowers & Wilkins speaker covers are also beautiful and really, really good sounding. We have our own climate control zone, heated seats as well, and air vents. A single two USB-C charging outlets, excuse me, cup holders and map pockets on the back of the seats in front of us. So yeah, very comfortable space to spend time, very easily fitting full-size adults behind full-size adults. Let's now climb into the third row to see how that compares. All right, sitting now in the third row with this chair adjusted to the same position as the last clip, I don't really fit. Now this chair obviously could move up a little bit and then I could fit in this third row, knee room wise, with still fitting in the second row. Although the cutout for the heads in the third row is a little far forward. So if I try to sit upright, my head does hit. Now earlier this week, I did actually carry 6 adults in this this vehicle, no problem. The people in the back were a little shorter than I am. So this is actually a very usable third row. Just I myself am noticing that it isn't quite as big as some of like the full size offerings or other 3-row midsize offerings. I'm thinking like Toyota Grand Highlander, Lexus TX definitely have a bit more third row legroom than this XC90. All right, hopping up front in the new XC90, we have pretty much the same layout as before with just a few updates to make it a bit more modern. We have a larger infotainment system, which some people are a bit annoyed about the fact that it kind of does just appear it's tacked on versus the very integrated screen into the dash of the, say, 2024 XC90. But, you know, I quite like the bigger screen, so I'm not too peeved about that. We also have a bit sleeker air vents, and that's kind of it. We still have our crystal glass shifter. We still have the beautiful materials and design that I have always loved on the XC90. Again, open pore wood trim, 2 different leather colors, these beautiful Bowers & Wilkins speaker covers. And so this is definitely a more familiar cabin and a bit of a departure from the cabin found on the EX90, that new electric 3-row SUV that Volvo's selling. That vehicle took minimalism a bit too far, in my opinion, and this XC90, while still very minimalistic, has more physical controls and more ease of use. For example, if I want to adjust my side view mirrors, I don't have to go into the infotainment system on this XC90. There are controls for that right here. If I want to lower the rear windows, well, I can just go right ahead and do that with a window switch right on my door panel instead of having to press a button to adjust the 2 window switches to then adjust the rear windows. It's all a bit of a faff in the EX90. Now, interestingly, in the EX90, it has an automatic tilt and telescoping steering wheel that you control on the steering wheel with adjustable buttons, which I don't love. This one doesn't do that, but it then is a manual tilt and telescoping adjusting steering wheel, which on a $89,000 vehicle, because that's how much this car costs, that seems a bit, you know, low quality. But overall, I'm a bigger fan of this. I love the crystal glass shifter better than the plasticky gear selector they put on EX90. Buttons that don't change what they do on the steering wheel, I like that, and a few more physical controls. Now, this new larger infotainment system does have a new Google-based operating system, which is definitely simpler than the one that Volvo was using in the past. But I do have a few qualms with it. One, all of our climate controls are in the screen. There are no physical buttons, and that just is really annoying while driving. If I want to adjust the temperature in this car, I can ask Google, but I just haven't really, that learning curve really hasn't reached me yet. And I think a lot of people who buy this car or rent this car aren't going to know about that or really fit that into their lifestyle. So if you want to do it just with your fingers, you got to touch the temperature and then you can turn it up or down. So that's 2 presses just to change the temperature. Same with the climate controls, like the fans. If you want them off or changing in the direction, you have to tap the fan icon on the bottom and then it pulls up the screen. Interestingly, the screen that it pulls up displays a cockpit, but that cockpit is the EX90's cockpit, not this XC90's cockpit, which is a little interesting. The other qualms I have with this system is if you are in reverse, your backup camera pops up. If you then go into drive, the 360 camera takes over. And if you go back into reverse, the backup camera doesn't automatically pop back up. It just stays on the 360 camera and you have to tap the screen and press rear for the backup camera to pop back up. That's a bit odd. I didn't realize how often I was doing reverse to drive to reverse, but it must be enough because I really noticed it and was annoyed by it in this vehicle. And it's odd that every time you go into reverse, the backup camera doesn't pop up. So that was one thing that was annoying. I might slide forward. Oh, nope. And the other thing that's annoying is if you have CarPlay projected on this screen, which it does, and it's beautiful and awesome. I love CarPlay. If you say adjust your massaging seats, because this Ultra model has massaging seats, just by pressing one of the buttons on the side of your seat, and then it pulls up your massaging seat screen on the screen to display for a little bit, and then it will revert back, except it doesn't take you back to CarPlay then, it takes you back to the home screen, and then you have to press on CarPlay again to get back to what you had been projecting. That's just super annoying and not well thought out. It should take me back to exactly where I had been before. So those are two nitpicks that I have with this screen. Also, to adjust drive modes, you have a few shortcut things on the home screen that you can adjust. Right now, drive modes and CarPlay and Bluetooth and camera are there, and you can put whatever you want there. But there's still a few too many taps, in my opinion, to get to what you want to do in this infotainment system. I'd love a few more physical controls. I love that we do have more physical controls than the EX90. We have a volume knob, we have a skip button, we have this awesome dial gear to turn on the vehicle, all of that. And overall, again, very sleek. And as I mentioned, this is an $89,000 vehicle. So the level of the design in this vehicle, with the open pore wood trim, with the two leathers, the suede headliner, that all does give, you know, $90,000 interior, more so than the EX90's super minimalistic interior does, because they really strip that thing down to make it mostly just a touchscreen and voice control. So I do prefer this interior to EX90. It has a few qualms, but overall it is a very comfortable and very luxurious place to spend time. So let's quick talk about the powertrain and get this car on the road to see how it drives. Under the hood of the new XC90, they are all powered by 2-liter turbocharged 4 cylinders, and this T8 plug-in hybrid model pairs that with an 18.8 kilowatt-hour battery pack and an electric motor to produce 455 horsepower and 523 pound-feet of torque. It is very quick. You should also be able to travel about 30 miles on electricity alone with a full charge, and you're gonna get about 44 mpg combined if you do a full tank of gas and a full charge. Pretty good. All right, driving the 2025.5 Volvo XC90. This car is definitely powerful enough. 455 horsepower, 523 pound-feet of torque is a lot. Now, if you are in pure mode, which is the EV mode, it's not that much power. It's like 120 horsepower, I want to say. And sometimes you notice that it takes a moment to accelerate, like up hills. And I had 6 people in the car the other day trying to go up a hill, and it was especially doggy in that moment. But on the whole, it's still enough power. And if you're in the hybrid mode, it will kind of revert to mostly EV power. But then if you really request a lot of acceleration from the throttle, then it will kick on the gas engine as well. Another drive mode, which I have to access by touching the screen, another drive mode is power mode that maximizes both electrical and internal combustion energy to give you that 455 horsepower and 523 pound-feet of torque. And it's really punchy in that drive mode. And the overall driving experience of XC90 is one of comfort. It's fairly quiet in here. These seats are super supportive and really excellent massage, which I just turned on. And now when I go away from the massage controls, my CarPlay is no longer up. That's a bit annoying. But yeah, seats are super comfortable. Best speakers in the business, these Bowers and Wilkins speakers. They have Dolby Atmos. Absolutely superb. I've loved these in every Volvo and Polestar I have been in, and this 25.5 model is no exception. And when you aren't in pure mode, you do occasionally hear the 4-cylinder. You know, turbocharged 4-cylinders are not known for their smoothness or their refinement. And you do hear this one every once in a while, but you don't really feel it, so that's good. The vibrations don't really come into the cabin. You just kind of every once in a while hear it, but when you're in pure mode, obviously, then you wouldn't. So comparing this to EX90, it's a bit more traditional on the interior, as I talked about earlier, and I would say the ride and the noise levels are pretty similar. It might be a little more hushed in the EX90. That car was obviously designed to be as slippery as possible because aerodynamics are especially important in electric vehicles. So that one might be a tad quieter, but pretty similar driving experiences. The only thing about that is you never hear a 4-cylinder in the EX90 because there isn't one, and you always have a really punchy powertrain because you get the instant torque from the electric motors in that car. But switching back to this XC90, it's very comfortable, very refined, very fitting of a luxury vehicle. You know, in today's modern age of super big SUVs, you're not like sitting above traffic in the United States. You're still kind of in it because there are definitely bigger vehicles out there than this car, But knowing how safe this vehicle is, it's not really something I talk too much about in this video, but XC90 is one of the safest cars on the market. It has one of the lowest fatality rates in the world, and Volvo, obviously, they pioneered the 3-point seatbelts. They are known for safety, and this XC90 is their safest model. And that is very comforting to know that well behind the wheel. You know, you can do everything you can to stay safe while driving, and the car's systems can do everything they can to keep you safe while driving, but there are still other drivers. And so I do feel very protected knowing this car's reputation. So that being in the back of my mind is pretty reassuring in this XC90. It's not something you can see, it's not something you can really feel, but you know it's there, and I like that. Yeah, so this, I wouldn't say this is the most luxurious riding luxury SUV. You know, you still feel bumps. This is air suspension. It will raise up and lower down, but you still feel bumps. There is some vibrations that come through the road surfaces. So like, it's not the standard bearer in terms of ride quality, I would say, but it's definitely acceptable for a luxury SUV. And I really do love the design of this cabin. That's kind of my favorite part about this vehicle. But let's now switch into power mode. We are about to turn on to the 405 freeway on a very long on-ramp to see what this vehicle can do. I don't have that much charge in the battery right now, but giving it some gas here, yep, pulls away. It pulls. It's very linear, actually, even though obviously we are working with a transmission. Very, very quick. Even as we get up to highway speeds, it is still accelerating very promptly. More than enough power in this XC90. I'm reminded of a Top Gear or Grand Tour episode where Jeremy Clarkson is reviewing the Tesla Model X, and he's like, I'm about to drag race this 7-seater family SUV against a V10 powered supercar, where he drag races the Model X against the R8. This XC90, you know, it's a bit of a sleeper because of its plug-in hybrid powertrain, and that makes it quite fun to drive. But yeah, there's nothing out of this world in terms of the driving dynamics of this vehicle. It doesn't necessarily do anything the best. In the 230 miles I've put on this vehicle this week so far, I've averaged 26.9 mpg, and that's with like 1.3 charges of this battery. It had a full charge when I got it, and then I was able to put another like 5 kilowatt hours on it later in the week. So you could definitely get better than that if you were to charge this often. But yeah, when you aren't charging it, it doesn't get great fuel economy. Now, I do live in Los Angeles, where we have horribly congested roads that are really inefficient for ICE engines, but just know that you really do need to plug this car in order to get the maximum benefits of this T8 powertrain. So that's the 2025.5 Volvo XC90. It's got some good updates to what was already a really solid vehicle. I love the way it looks. It's very comfortable, and it's got decent driving dynamics. If you're not ready to go all electric just yet, this plug-in hybrid model might be the right 3-row midsize luxury SUV for you. Now, the price is definitely very high. $89,000 blows my mind for a Volvo XC90, but that's kind of the world we live in. A fully loaded EX90 is even more expensive at $93,000. Thanks for watching. Like, comment, share, and subscribe, and I'll catch you guys in my next video.